Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. Today's September 4th, and today we have an historic abortion death. This abortion was in 1871, perpetrated by a professional lay abortionist. So on Wednesday, August 23rd of 1871, 22-year-old Mary, who worked at a New York envelope factory, went to the home of her brother-in-law. Mary confessed to her family that she was pregnant and sick, and she, quote, threw herself upon the mercy of her relatives. They did not cast her off, but instead summoned Dr. Warren A. James and treated her with every possible kindness. So, when Dr. James first went to see Mary, she admitted to an abortion, saying that she had taken an abortifacient given to her by a Dr. Tully on August 23rd. Dr. James turned her care over to a former police surgeon, Dr. Jeremiah Bliven, and he had a talk with Mary about coming clean about who actually did the abortion. Mary's health took a turn for the worse, and by Sunday, August 7th, Bliven finally went to the police and reported the abortion. A coroner's detective went and questioned Mary and took her dying declaration. She had been pregnant for about 2 months, and she had gone to a Mrs. Burns for an abortion. She said that housekeeper had held her up against the wall while Mrs. Burns had used instruments on her, without producing any immediate effect. Burns told Mary that if anybody questioned her, she was to blame the abortion on a Dr. Tully, and sent Mary home. But Mary took ill immediately. She expelled the dead baby 3 or 4 days later, grew sick, and finally went to her family for care. She reported the baby's father had given her $10, which is slightly less than $260 in 2023, to pay for the abortion, and just abandoned her. And Mary died in the early morning hours of September 4th. So the police went to Mrs. Burns's house and arrested the housekeeper, and found out that Mrs. Burns was at her other home in Long Island. Mary's baby daddy was arrested, along with Mary's roommate who had gone with her for the abortion. So the primary people who benefit from legalization are the other people involved in the abortion. The woman is just as dead either way, but with safe and legal abortion, the other people typically aren't in any kind of trouble. So the police went off to Long Island, and the news coverage said, "They found the abortionist living in an elegant mansion, furnished throughout in the most splendid manner, of which she was the owner, as also of 100 acres of fine land adjacent to it, all of which was in a high state of cultivation." Now, Mrs. Burns didn't seem at all alarmed to see the police, and evidently Mary didn't cross her mind. She seemed to be operating under the assumption that she was wanted in connection with the trunk tragedy, which is almost certainly the death of Alice Bowlsby. But she hadn't been involved in that, so she was probably feeling like, oh, I'm a shoe-in here, no problem. But when she was told that she was actually being arrested for Mary Russell's death, quote, "without giving any explanation of her deed, or almost without taking the trouble to deny it, she was taken away to a cell and locked up. The coroner performed an autopsy on Mary and confirmed that she had died of an infection caused by the abortion." And Mary disappears from the news after that, as does Mrs. Burns. I'm getting the feeling that Alice Bowlsby's slightly more sensational death, because she was stuffed into a trunk and found at a railway station, kind of deflected the press attention away from Mary's death. So it was nice to see that the abortionist got arrested.